Here are some examples to review Chapter 2 and how to write two-column proofs. Here's a look at the first example. We know that angle BAC is congruent to angle BCA. We want to prove that angle BAC is congruent to angle ECD. So, as always, we start out with what's given. So angle BAC is congruent to angle BCA. We know that's true because it's given. And we want to get, what we want to prove is that angle BAC is congruent to angle ECD. So that's what we're trying to prove there. How can we do that? Well, you can see the relationship between angle BCA and angle ECD here are vertical angles. So we know that angle BCA is congruent to angle ECD because of the vertical angles theorem. Well, based on our given statement and our second line vertical angles theorem, we can conclude that angle BAC is congruent to angle ECD, the very statement we're trying to prove, and that's based on transitivity. Here's another example. We've got two diagrams, one including angles 1 and 2, second including angles 3 and 4, and we know that angle 4 is congruent to angle 2. And we want to prove that 1 and 3 are congruent, so angle 4 is congruent to angle 2. This is what's given. And this is actually a very short proof. We know that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 simply based on the congruent supplements theorem, which states that the supplement of congruent angles are themselves congruent. So short proof there. One more here. B is the midpoint of AC. So B is the midpoint of AC. D is the midpoint of AE. And we know that AB, well, D is the midpoint of AE. And we know that AB is congruent. Let me do a different color. AB here is congruent to DE here. Prove BC is congruent to AD. So we always start with what's given. B is the midpoint of AC. D is the midpoint of AE. And AB congruent to DE. And that's given. Well, we also know now that AB is congruent to BC, and we know that AD is congruent to DE because of the definition of midpoint. So we have a bunch of line segments here that are congruent. What we're trying to prove is that BC is congruent to AD. So if we look at this congruence here, BC is congruent to AB. We look at this congruence here, AB is congruent to DE, and then if we look at this congruence here, DE is congruent to AD, we're going to conclude that segment BC is congruent to segment AD, just like we're trying to prove. And again, we use transitivity to prove that.